This episode begins on a somber note as our hero, Bjorn, indulges in introspection, reminiscing about his days as a skilled dungeon and stone player. The memories of his past confidence flood his mind. He used to believe that his incredibly powerful barbarian body, combined with years of game knowledge and experience, could conquer anything the game had to offer. But now, those confident thoughts seem like distant memories, shattered by the unforgiving reality of the world he's trapped in. The scene shifts back to Bjorn, who finds himself once again in the dark and eerie dungeon known as the Labyrinth. The darkness is almost suffocating, engulfing him in an oppressive veil of obscurity. He knows the first levels of the labyrinth usually have crystals providing illumination, but this part is different. It's filled with impenetrable darkness that chills him to the bone. Bjorn wonders if he's stumbled into the dreaded darkness region, a place on the furthest outskirts of the labyrinth where no light exists. The revelation stuns him, and he can't help but feel a sense of dread creeping into his heart. He realizes that this region isn't a starting point like the others. The rules are much different here, and survival will be far more challenging. With a heavy heart, Bjorn tries to gain some guidance from the game by calling the status window out, but the lack of response from the status window leaves him frustrated and disappointed. He's greeted by nothing but an eerie silence from the game, offering no help or solace. At this point, our hero's frustration reaches a boiling point. An expression of annoyance overtakes his face, but he quickly composes himself. He knows there's no point in staying in one place. He must keep moving if he wants to survive. With newfound determination, he puts his hand on the wall and starts moving slowly, trusting the cold stone to guide him. As he carefully advances through the treacherous darkness, he suddenly feels a searing pain shoot up from his foot. A gut-wrenching scream of agony escapes his lips, echoing through the dark abyss. His foot is caught in a vicious goblin trap, causing grave injuries with spikes piercing his skin. A window appears stating that his character has stepped into a goblin trap. Enduring the pain, he clenches his teeth, muttering to himself a mental pep talk that he must calm down and endure. He knows that making too much noise will alert nearby goblins that use his traps on level 1, and they'll come for him, eager to prey on the vulnerable intruder. Drawing upon his experience as a seasoned dungeon explorer, Bjorn tries to break free from the trap by softly hammering it with his shield. The orange glow of his eyes reflects his determination and anxiety as he looks around, checking his surroundings for any sign of goblin presence. He wonders if it's possible that the goblin is not near him, but a sudden jolt of realization dispels such thoughts. His mind quickly reminds him that thoughts like this are dangerous, and in this unforgiving realm, he must always assume the worst to ensure his survival. He knows better than to underestimate the cunning of these creatures. If there's a trap, there must be a goblin nearby, lurking in the shadows, watching his every move. If the goblin hears his scream and becomes aware of his presence, it might not attack right away, but it will watch him, stalking him like a predator, waiting for the perfect moment to strike when he's at his weakest. This knowledge fuels Bjorn's determination to escape from the trap and evade the lurking goblin. He endures the pain of pulling the sharp pincers of the trap from his foot while cursing the barbarians for not providing them with leather boots. With every ounce of willpower and strength, he frees his foot from the goblin trap. Despite the victory, his troubles aren't over. The poison from the trap is spreading through his leg, numbing his right foot. The goblin is likely waiting for him, eager to prey on the wounded intruder. Despite the mounting fear and pain, Bjorn refuses to succumb to despair. He holds his shield up and asks the goblin to come out of hiding, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance as he tells the goblin to come out. But the paralyzing effect of the poison starts to take its toll, and he feels his leg weakening. As the poison begins to paralyze him, Bjorn finds himself saying idiotic things, talking to the goblin as if it was near him, while also realizing that his brain has been momentarily blanked out. Amidst the haze of pain and fear, he hears footsteps behind him, growing louder with every passing moment. He knows the goblin is getting closer, but he can't see it in the darkness. He decides to rely on the art of running away. Every time he moves a little bit, he senses the goblin's footsteps right behind him. He quickly turns around, trying to catch a glimpse of the lurking creature, but every time he does, he sees nothing but pitch darkness. However, despite the darkness shrouding his surroundings, Bjorn has an awareness about this game unlike anyone else. He knows the cunning and intelligence of his enemies. He knew that the goblin was maintaining a certain distance as it stops when he stops. It's rejoicing as its prey is bleeding away and dying. The goblin was probably waiting for him to slowly die while being scared of its laugh, and so he comes up with another plan on the spot. Instead of moving further away from the goblin and tearing himself out of its reach, he decides to kneel on the ground and then fall down face first. He pretends to collapse, hoping the goblin will believe the poison has finally worked its magic and taken him down. The goblin appears behind our hero, its grotesque features illuminated by the faint glow of Bjorn's eyes. It stares at his injured and bloody foot, seemingly in disbelief that the poison worked so fast. It moves closer, curiosity getting the better of it. But then, just as it's about to reach out to the seemingly lifeless intruder, it suddenly stops. A spark of suspicion flickers in its beady eyes, and it decides to throw a rock at Bjorn, just to be sure. Seeing the goblin throw rocks at him to verify if he's alive, Bjorn is actually amused, remembering how intelligent the enemies in this game can be. Determined not to move a muscle, he endures the stinging pain of the rocks hitting his body. The goblin, seemingly convinced of his demise, starts to move towards him, its axe raised in triumph. But Bjorn is not one to give up easily. As the goblin waddles closer, his axe at the ready, Bjorn sees this as his opportunity to strike. With a burst of energy, he quickly gets onto his knees and tries lunging at the goblin in an effort to attack it. However, the creature is too smart, and it realizes his plans as soon as he speaks. It swiftly dodges the oncoming attack, and the sinister smile on its face widens with triumph. Bjorn's heart pounds in his chest, but amidst the adrenaline and fear, he feels something stirring deep within him. An electrifying sense of power surges through his body, and he can feel his limbs moving with the will of their own. His hand automatically reaches out towards the creature, and his eyes are glowing red like a true barbarian, filled with the primal fury of a warrior. In one powerful punch, Bjorn manages to pummel the goblin onto the ground, shouting at it that he was stronger, and that the goblin was the prey instead. Oh, how the tables have turned. He unleashes a torrent of punches, each blow fueled by his frustration, fear, and the desire to prove his strength. The goblin cries out in pain, its wailing echoing in the darkness. Bjorn yells at the top of his lungs, proclaiming his dominance over the creature. With each punch, he can feel the rage and pent-up emotions from his past coming to the surface, driving him to fight with the fury of a wounded beast. As the goblin keeps letting out screams of pain, Bjorn feels something inside him shift. He feels the strength coursing through his veins, and the fear that once paralyzed him starts to recede. He realizes how different this body is compared to his past self, that sick little boy who was stuck in the hospital, frail and helpless. The realization empowers him, and his punches become more and more explosive. He delivers blow after blow, each one a testament to his newfound strength and resilience. He continues to destroy the goblin, declaring that he's not the prey in this scenario, but the predator. His screams of power reverberate through the darkness, and it's as if he's tapping into an ancient primal force, channeling the essence of a true barbarian fighter. With every punch, the goblin's body bears the brunt of Bjorn's overwhelming strength. Its bones crack, its body contorts, and it can't withstand the relentless assault. After crying out in pain for as long as it could, the goblin finally succumbs to the merciless onslaught. As the lifeless goblin lies before him just as a window appears telling him that he had defeated a goblin and earned 1 EXP, Bjorn continues to kneel, covered in sweat and goblin blood. He looks down at the disfigured and broken creature, witnessing the aftermath of his fury. The goblin's body begins to emanate smoke and light, just like in the game, as it starts to disintegrate. For a moment, Bjorn is taken aback, watching the creature's body fade away into nothingness, but soon, he notices something left behind on the ground, the red gemstone. He picks it up, realizing that this is the currency of the game. He inspects the little red gemstone in his hand. It's a grade 9 magic crystal with an estimated value of 1 piece of bread. The reward seems meager, considering the pain and suffering he endured. Wearing a sad smile on his face, Bjorn realizes that this world is not fair. It's a realm where labyrinths and monsters exist, and the monsters that die and disappear leave items behind. It's a world where the law of the jungle prevails, and survival demands strength, cunning, and resilience. Outside the confines of these labyrinthian dungeons, there are beautiful scenic views and diverse races living together in harmony. As he uses all of his strength to get up, the pain from his injured foot and the poison coursing through his leg are still a burden. But Bjorn knows that this isn't just a game, it's his new reality. He knows with the utmost certainty that he will never mistake this reality for a game ever again. This is his new life, and he's determined to face it head-on. With a renewed sense of purpose, Bjorn starts walking, his foot injured and poisoned, leaving behind a trail of blood. Every step he takes is marked with resilience, for he knows that in this realm, survival demands unwavering strength and resolve. The journey ahead may be arduous, But Bjorn is prepared to face whatever challenges come his way, for he is no longer a mere player in a game, he is a true warrior in a world of labyrinthine mysteries and unfathomable dangers. "You are still bleeding," the window status repeats. A trail of blood follows as we now see him crawl his way through the darkness region as his foot has gotten purple due to blood loss and poison. He can be heard panting and groaning in pain as he crawls. He's getting a bit annoyed at the notification that he's still bleeding. He says he's not a fractured dog that needs reminders of it again and again. He remembers how sweet it felt to forsake his human weakness and embrace his barbaric side when killing that goblin. He's smart though as he's crawling without using his injured leg, which means he's not in pain, and he's also moving faster than he would have if he walks. Not to mention the best part is that he won't be stepping on any other traps. He will crawl his way while making sure the path is clear as he's crawling. His arm raises another trap, and he realizes that moving like this is making the rest of his body hurt pretty badly. But he must endure to survive this. His foot bleeding has not stopped since he got caught in the trap. It's gone numb and it looks almost deformed in its swollen state. At this point, our hero realizes that he might need some help because he is in quite a tricky situation. He cannot get any help in the darkness region though, so he must keep trekking on in one direction until he is able to get out of the darkness. During a pain that no one should ever go through, Bjorn wonders what happened to that other player from earlier, the one that was struck down by the chieftain. Did he ever wake up in his original body back in the normal world, or did he just simply die never to return? As the game keeps reminding him that he's bleeding, he begins to understand why humans have religions. In fact, he has bled so much at this point that he's only got 5% of his vitality remaining. He thinks about how in moments of despair, religion can provide humans with a distraction. It might have helped someone like him in a situation like this, but he's never been one to have immense faith. The window tells him that if he does not receive treatment soon the character may die. He crawls his way forward and reaches an area where he can see it getting brighter. Looks like he's doing much better than he had anticipated. As it's starting to get brighter, he must get to a lighter area, some place where he can see how much damage has been done to him. He crawls with all his remaining strength, doing his best to endure and survive. The problem is, our hero needs to be treated, and he wonders if there's anyone who would be able to help. However, before the thought even processes in his mind, his overly conscious side reminds him of how stupid he sounds. It tells him that he won't receive any help. Nobody likes barbarians, they're disproportional, stronger than the average person but have no other notable traits such as beauty or intelligence. For a moment, he thinks that he might be losing his sanity because now he's starting to see illusions. But as a mockery to himself, he asks his shadow what he would do instead. The shadow continues to scare him more, telling him that he might run into a monster before he runs into a human. However, Bjorn isn't fazed by this. He just wants to have better vision than this crippling darkness. His identity keeps splitting into two pieces, joining back again and getting dull again. He's having conversations with himself, and this is all because he's been losing way too much blood at a rapid rate. However, his shadow isn't giving him any opportunities. The more he thinks about surviving, the more it tells him that he's going to die as a loser. It tells him to give up, but he won't compromise on his life. He keeps crawling, trying his hardest to reach the light until he sees it, and he seizes it. As soon as he enters the light, he tries to speak out and call for help towards whoever is nearby. With only 4% vitality left, he will die soon if left unattended. A group of adventurers is passing by through the crystal-lit caves. A red-haired man in shining armor notices him and is shocked to see the barbarian in such a state. The red-haired man in iron armor lets his friend Draus know that there's a dying barbarian, and the friend is also shocked. Meanwhile, Bjorn's notification from reaching 4% remaining of the character's vitality had dropped to 2% as he continued to bleed. However, reaching 2% vitality gives him an achievement. His mental stat will keep rising by +1 now as a reward. The adventurers walk down towards our barbarian hero and talk about how he looks like a novice. Listening to this, Bjorn internally curses at them and begs them to help him in his mind. This is a seemingly well-balanced party of 5 adventurers, a old mage like Gandalf, a priestess, a stunning rogue with arrows, and 2 warriors. The blonde-haired warrior Draus wonders how a novice got here faster than them as his group mentions that Bjorn was suspicious. At this moment, Bjorn is so weak that he can't even form words with his mouth to reply. The adventurers are just staring at him, and he wants to rage in anger because no one is doing anything to help him. All he could do was give them a huge bombastic side-eye. Draus stands up and keeps staring at Bjorn for a moment before sparking a creepy smile. He then talks to the priestess named Erzina behind him and asks if she could treat the barbarian. Bjorn is a bit surprised and happy to know that there's a priestess in their party, but just as he thought he would run into a miracle, the priestess coldly refused to heal him. Son of a bitch, right guys? Now that might come as a shock to most people, but Draus has another idea up his sleeve. He talks to his red-hair man in armor called Patron and asks him to give him one of the potions that he has. Patron tries to get out of it, saying that it's only for use in emergencies when they cannot be treated by divine power. Draus won't take no for an answer though and tells him that he would pay him for it once they were outside. Patron isn't too happy about this, but he has no choice but to give the potion over to the party leader. Draus takes the potion and warns our hero that since this isn't divine power that's healing him, it might hurt quite a bit. He unseals the vial of the healing potion and spills it all over Bjorn's foot. A notification window pops up that lets our hero know that his vitality is quickly increasing due to recovery. His eyes open wide as he feels a huge sting on his foot and all over his body. He screams out in agony as it hurts horribly. The pain is so much that it feels even worse than when he got caught in the goblin trap. His entire body feels like it's melting, and now he knows why they never allowed players to use the potion in the middle of battles. The vial is empty, with only a few droplets that drip out onto the ground, and miraculously, Bjorn's foot has completely healed from all its purple bleeding and swollen grotesque nature to its regular ordinary look. He begins to get up, breathing a sigh of relief, knowing that he has finally been healed. He really thought he was going to die as he sweats profusely out of nervousness, but his eyes have a determination like never before. Now that Bjorn is awake and fully conscious, Draus asks him to tell them how a novice like him managed to get to this part of the labyrinth before them. He inquires if he knows anything about secret passages and that he would indeed purchase that information from Bjorn. He thinks that they could make a valuable transaction out of this encounter, and Bjorn now knows this. He knows it's for the best because there is nothing more suspicious than human decency in a game like this. People will always have an ulterior motive in Dungeon and Stone. Never trust strangers, people. He answers exactly how it happened. He tells them how as soon as he stepped into the labyrinth, he was here. This confuses Draus a bit, but he has read about this before. He talks about how dimensional instability could result in a player falling into the outskirts of the darkness at times. However, since the probability was so low, it happened only once every 100 years. Bjorn is mortified after hearing that this happens once after every 100 years. This information was completely new for him. Plot armor kinda failed here for him. Bjorn once again notices that they have a mage and a priestess in their party, which means that they are at least mid to high level at this point. But somehow, Bjorn had just experienced something on his first trip to the labyrinth which was something even a veteran party like theirs had never seen before. Draus thanks him for the interesting story as the group of adventurers begins to walk in a different direction. He looks back at our hero, telling him that he can leave and that he doesn't have to pay them back for the potion. Bjorn looks at them as they walk away. Time in the labyrinth is considered as precious as gold, so it was a miracle that these people decided to waste their time on someone like him. He musters up his energy and picks up his shield as he stands up, though he feels disgusted that he is someone who needs to be shown such pity. The scene switches to the party of adventurers that we saw a second ago as they walk through the crystal-lit caverns of the labyrinth. Patron talks to Draus, telling him that the Barbarian was quite lucky that they ran into him. However, Draus comments that spawning into the darkness region on his first time is quite unlucky. Patron corrects Draus by telling him that Bjorn was lucky to have met them because if he were to stepped on a goblin trap on the first floor he would have died eventually. If anything, the rogue woman in their party says that the Barbarian survived because he ran into Draus. After all, a certain someone wouldn't even give him a potion. Patron says that it's because there are too many cheap people like him around and asks the priestess if she agrees with him. The priestess is quite stoic, though, as she does not even respond to the question. She just quietly keeps on walking. This angers the rogue. She begins to insult Patron, saying that if it wasn't for the temple restrictions, the priestess would have healed the Barbarian. But Patron isn't budging. He just says there are too many two-faced people. The rogue tells him to learn a few things from Draus, and he simply replies that Draus helped him because he wanted to gain some information about a secret passage. Draus is listening to all of this and makes an embarrassed face because he doesn't know how to respond. He then notices the blood trail on the ground and wonders when this Barbarian's blood trail is going to stop. They've been following it for a while, and it just never ends. The rogue says that judging from the Barbarian's strong mentality, it seems that he didn't survive just because of luck. Patron states that it's bound to end somewhere. Draus tells his party about a shortcut and asks them to make a turn right here, and the priestess comments that it's helpful to have a capable guide in the party. The rogue tells her that their party leader has the map of the entire first floor memorized, which is even more surprising to the priestess. This is where Draus notices something that catches his attention: a large stone gate, and he notices that they're the first ones to arrive at this location. Draus puts his hand on the stone tablet near him, and a bright gate emerges in front of them. You see, this is the portal that will take them to the second floor, and naturally, they're all excited and ready to go. Before they leave, though, the rogue catches something. The rest of the group turns around to see what she noticed. She tells them that it's the goblin trap with Bjorn's sandal covered in blood. The mage summons a light bulb, illuminating the whole area, and tells her that she was right, and they see the blood trail that is emerging from the trap towards the place they found him. This shocks every single member of the party, confused at how someone could survive for that long while bleeding profusely. Shows how much our boy Bjorn is an absolute gigachad of a man. The mage asks Draus how much they have traveled since encountering the barbarian, and Draus replies that it has been roughly 15 kilometers. The mage is impressed, calling him a monstrous bastard for crawling through the darkness for that long. Patron is shocked too, stating that the barbarian was out of his mind. The rogue grew nervous upon hearing that from him. We see that he's internally quite scared, wondering how he would have done in the same situation. He remembers how Bjorn held out his right hand the entire time, which probably had the goblin's crystal inside it. He realizes that even after crawling that entire time and almost dying in the process, the barbarian didn't forget to offer his only tradable item in exchange for their help. He takes back everything he said earlier. In fact, he asks Draus for the barbarian's name. He's starting to realize how wrong he was about that person. Lunatics like Bjorn will never die unless there's a special reason. No matter how hard things are or how much agony they must face, death will never be their escape route. Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.